All right, everybody can see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, perfect, perfect. So thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Ron, for the very warm greeting. We're here today. We're going to talk a bit about soft skills and particularly about Robert Cialdini's science of influence and persuasion. Um, so you'll notice the persuasion becomes a pre-suasion, and we're gonna dive into that together. I already see questions, but Mohammed, I'll deal with questions at the end, right? Oh no, not questions, just comments. Okay.
Yeah, of course, yeah. At the end
We'll
of the
have
presentation.
exactly. We'll have time to deal with questions at the end. What we're going to do today together, we're going to embark on very short reflection and self-reflection on education, where learners are at today, and then we're going to take a look at a soft skill that I really like because it's got. I am an engineer, and it's got a formula, or at least it has formulas. It's things that we can directly apply. It's a soft skill that is not just something that is, well, too soft that we can't touch it, that we can't feel it. So that's why I'm a big fan of this, the science of influence and persuasion. For a bit of background, this is Dr. Robert Cialdini, a huge influencer. He wrote this first book, Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, a while back, and he's modernized it. He's updated it quite a bit since then. It's a brilliant book that will. It's very interesting. It's very interesting because it delves into communication beyond language. It Robert Cialdini decided to explore how we humans communicate beyond words, the actions that we do for each other, the promises that we make, maybe the little manipulations that we use to try to influence each other's opinions and decision making. And that's really where we dive into useful soft skills that we can touch, that we can feel, that we can see in action around us in so many different spheres, and that are really going to help us become more effective communicators. Because if we notice them, if we know them, we can identify them when they're used on us, and we can use them ethically. I always love that about Cialdini. We can use them ethically to influence each other towards the right decisions. I dove into Cialdini after, well, of course, I'm an English teacher, so I love language. I am obsessed with language. And whenever I'm preparing lessons, preparing workshops, training sessions, things like that, there's always a part of me that is looking for some element of language to teach, uh, to 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 pass on, to work on. It's always about the language. But recently, going to a lot of conferences, listening to a lot of modern speakers talk about really communication and where people are at in the workplace today, the skills that they're going to need tomorrow. None of them really touch the language as we language teachers look at language in terms of constructions, in terms of vocabulary, in terms of grammar, things like that. Everybody's talking about soft skills, about communication skills, because robots, computers are going to automate everything. All the processes and things like that are going to be handled by robots, blah, 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 blah. And the future belongs to the humans who can communicate, who can manage themselves, manage each other, and communicate effectively. That led me to thinking about, well, what kind of new tools I could bring to the classroom, what kind of new helpful content would be influential to my students, to the learners that come in my sessions. And Robert Cialdini, I came across this book Robert Cialdini's reflection work made me realize that actually, while this modern picture is perfect, is beautiful, and makes us feel like we're on the cutting edge and we're moving forward, etc., we are still basically humans. And the way our communication works in society, the heritage we have still comes from the very basic communication that happened at the very beginning of the Stone Ages, when we needed to survive and we needed to have very effective communication, effective social constructs that made us into a successful species. That is where the science of influence is really interesting, because what you're going to see in the science of influence and Pre-suasion, you're going to see there are 7 shortcuts, 7 influence points, 7 manipulation techniques that are deeply ingrained in the human being, that have nothing to do with English, German, whatever language we speak, whatever our L1 is. This is just human language. I like to portray it as human language. How do we interact socially to understand each other and to come together to the right conclusion, the right decision, the better one for the group? Very, very interesting. So let's start off with these 7 shortcuts, and let's see how we can incorporate them in our language lessons to help our students become better communicators. So these 7 shortcuts, we're going to divide them. We're going to not divide them. We're going to put them in 3 different categories of influence. The first one is building on a relationship or building a relationship. I hope everybody's on well, the idea of building a relationship is really the cornerstone, the beginning, the foundation. Building on a relationship is the relationship is already established, and we're nurturing that relationship. We're trying to develop it, bring it to new levels. So 3 factors in the building on a relationship, and you're going to see they're pretty obvious once you know them. Reciprocity. What is reciprocity? Very quickly in the chat to you, what could reciprocity evoke in you in social interactions, in human communication? Mutual, not one-sided. Do unto others as they do to you. Nice one. Nice one. And you're absolutely right. Going back, we can find principles like this. It exists in our religious values as well. The question again, please. The question is, what could reciprocity evoke in human interactions, in human language, between 2? I treat someone the way I want to be treated. Very, very good. Absolutely. Absolutely. We often talk about favors, for example, to illustrate reciprocity. The idea is that, well, yeah, when someone does something for you, you're much more likely to do someone a favor in the future. We treat someone based on our biases. Social emotional learning. Well, reciprocity is very specifically that aspect of that social interaction. The fact that, you know what, if I invite you to my birthday, when it will come time for your birthday and planning your birthday party, there's a good chance you're going to remember, you know what, Antoine invited me to his. I'll invite Antoine to my birthday party. What goes around comes around. Generosity, very nice. You're absolutely right. So this reciprocity factor, you'll pay attention to it and I invite you, what's great about this science of influence is you should totally get into brainstorming sessions with your students, with your learners on each of these principles, because you can go very far. The reciprocity principle, we're here talking about, so I like the fact that you brought up a lot of, yes, moral values, religious values, things like that. Absolutely. For these social interactions, you talk about generosity, what goes around comes around. Now, the next step, what can be very interesting, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and startups. How is the reciprocity factor used by businesses? Do you see anything on social media, in advertising, maybe? How do companies use reciprocity? Any ideas in the chat? How do companies use reciprocity? Discount membership cards, bargain offers. So you'll see that membership cards play on another factor of the science influence. But I see, yes, coupons, bargain offers.
I'd like to just jump in and add that we see reciprocity working here because we're asking people for feedback and we're asking them to give us feedback. But in return, we're going to give them a certificate. And that's reciprocity, yeah.
Reciprocity.
Yeah. And action.
I noticed when I logged in, yes, you were talking about exactly that. And it's a normal social interaction. This thing, I do something for you, you do something for me. It is really ingrained in us. It is part of what I like to call the human language. You can go anywhere in the world, anywhere, not speaking at all the same language. Through actions, you can give something to someone, and that other human will understand and will probably want to give you something. Quid pro quo. Absolutely. Barter, coupons, classical conditioning, the sales get benefited. Yeah, absolutely. I put here, next to party invitation, you see tips. It's very, very interesting. There have been a lot of social studies conducted on waiters, waitresses, and how they give tips in restaurants, and to see the effect. Does it really have, how do they not give tips, how they react at the end, and how they get bigger tips? You've probably all noticed in restaurants the mint or the little gum at the end. When they give you the bill, there's a gum or there's a candy, a mint, something like that. When it's not done personally, when it's not done as a service, basically, we take it for granted. So we don't see reciprocity when a waiter just comes and gives us the bill with a mint inside without any specific introduction or personalization. That just seems like something standard that the restaurant does. But and there are a lot of studies done on that. It's really interesting. If the waiter in any way makes it personal, comes to the table and says, "Oh, for you nice people, here's a mint," it has a huge influence actually on the tips that they're going to get. It's really interesting. The reciprocity has to be a human interaction. If you expect that just by putting a mint with each bill that you give, that all your clients are going to give a lot bigger tips, it's not going to work. It has to be a human interaction. Reciprocity, is it bargaining, give and take? It doesn't have to be an official give and take. It's more something that we tend to do quite naturally as human beings. So it's not always to get something. As I said, the party invitation. Here, if I invite you to my party, I didn't especially intend it as a barter, but just you're very likely to invite me to your birthday party after me inviting you to mine. It's just a normal human need. We need to respond to those. I know we're all different human beings. Not everybody is as, let's say, well, yes, as Fiona is right, you reap what you sow. All right, continuing on, building on our relationship. You see that this reciprocity factor, it doesn't surprise you. The moment I introduced it, you already have so many different ideas because this is human language. It really is quite obvious, but you can't really introduce it and do something with it until you have it written down like Cialdini does. So the second factor, sorry, liking, well, that's pretty obvious. But basically, we tend to want to interact with people that we like or that like us. It's that simple. And I don't know about you guys, but I was teaching for a long time in Eastern Europe and in Russia. And the number of times I had to try to persuade my students that small talk is not ridiculous. I know that it can seem so. A lot of students are like, oh my gosh, do we have to do this small talk? Hi, how are you? How are you? It's just the obvious. Nobody cares. We're all going through the motions. No, you should not be going through your motions. If you're going through the motions, you're not doing proper small talk. You're not building on relationships where you could, because it is human. We bond with people who like the things that we like or who dislike the things that we dislike. And when we're doing small talk, we bond. We get to connect. We share things, and this is, you can take a look at the relationships at work, for example, the coffee cooler, the water cooler, or the coffee machine area, even the smoking area. Smoking is bad, yes. But you know what? When smokers are outside having a cigarette and in the process of small talk, there's a lot of bonding that goes on. There's a lot of relationship building. It is only natural. It is part of the human language. I'll very quickly check in the chat. Birds, absolutely. Small talk is the most important communication tool used in all cultures. Glad we agree. Small talk is really this time in the conversation that, yes, we think we're not handling the issue. We think we might be wasting time, but we're not. We're building on our human relations. We're building on relationships. Birds of the same feather flock together via healthy reciprocation. Fiona, that's poetry. I hope they keep the chat. Ron Mohammed, you could make a few screenshots and post that online. Third factor in building relationships. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Third shortcut, unity. Now, that seems quite close to liking, but well, before I give you examples, what do you think this unity factor might be about in the human language? All right. First word in the chat, trust. Very, very, yeah, very smart. Very good reaction. We, us, care. There's a very good aspect that I love that in the chat. I mostly see all the positive aspects and the good sides of these words that are coming, of these factors. So unity, yes. Understanding, us, the sense of belonging, things like that. Care, trust. There's also, we want to be with other people who feel are like us. Absolutely, absolutely. Now, there is a downside to this unity factor. Look at how social media clumps us together. There's a lot of talk about that right now, about the fact that we're dividing our societies because the social networks tend to clump us into groups of liking and unity. And do we interact less between those groups, those very different ideological groups? According to a lot of people, that is a problem. Social media are clumping us in wrong groups. Rapport is key while in collaboration. Exactly wrong. There are bad sides to unity. Mobbing, bullying. Unity is a very, very powerful factor in the human language, but it can lead us to very bad behavior and to very unfortunate conclusions. Individuality lost, collaboration. So yeah, you see, we have both sides to it. When we were talking about reciprocity, I asked you how businesses use reciprocity. I remember somebody put discount cards, membership cards. So very different. Basically, discount cards are mostly about just giving you that financial reward, but it's developed into things like membership cards, where very good promoters, very good influencers and things like this will develop a huge a community around a product or around a service, and it goes beyond just discount cards. Here it's a membership card. Do you even hear the word? Your member. But it's just a business. It's just a product you're buying or a service you're buying. But you're a member of that community. You feel so good about it. So yes, it's building on what we have in common for this strength of the relationship. You see that these three factors are really basic when you think about it, but until you map it out, you're still dealing with the abstract. These three factors are what influencers and promoters, bear in mind as well, politicians, salespeople, they know all this. These are the three factors that they always keep in mind when they're trying to build a relationship with you in order to get you to vote for them, to buy their product, etc. So it's good to be aware, to identify when it's used against you. And it's really good to be aware as well, because you want to be able to use this ethically when you're trying to guide towards the right conclusion. I don't know, you might be trying to convince someone to give money to a charity, to a good cause, things like that. In this case, these manipulation techniques you can use them ethically without lying. You use them ethically to direct the other person towards the right decision. Oh, nice, Ron. List of cognitive biases. Haste can make waste. Money could be a blessing if invested in a dignified manner, but also can be a bane if invested for others. Absolutely. Absolutely. Money is not the evil, it's what we do with it. Absolutely, I fully agree. All right, let's dive into the second category of these factors in the human language, dealing with uncertainty. And that is, I know it might seem very specific, but actually it pertains to an immense amount of situations we go through as humans every day. We need, and we always try to get rid of any uncertainty that we have. The brain is looking for uncertainty. It's looking for certainty. The brain is looking for comfort, for reassurance. So we naturally tend to try to get away with any uncertainty. Fear, fear, and more fear. Absolutely. How do we deal with this uncertainty? It's very interesting. Here we're going to assume that we're dealing with uncertainty without the ability to deal with it on our own. So in terms of social interactions, in terms of society, social interactions, if we're in an uncertainty, what are we going to look for in others? Any idea? If I'm unsure what to do, what to say, how to behave in this situation, what do I do? Oh, yes, absolutely. I look for support. Luis or Rita, where do you look for support? Search for stability in others. Very good, Evgenia. Trustworthy person. Google for support. Okay, yes, yes, yes. Okay, Ron, you definitely should email Robert Cialdini and suggest that he adapt his science of influence and add a third factor, Google, for support for the modern human. But yes, you're absolutely on the right track. Absolutely, everybody. Search for stability in others. Trustworthy person. So it's all about looking at the behavior of others, basically, right? So this is called social proof. First of all, the first principle, the first shortcut. We tend to look at what others do. If you're unsure, the normal human reaction, and you can go to any place, just I don't know, a strange announcement, all of a sudden, an unexpected announcement in a shopping center. You'll see that people are unsure what to do, how to react. What do? They look at other people around them to see how they are reacting. It is completely natural. That's what all humans do. A bit like sheep. It's always a bit of a joke, but we shouldn't take it badly because it's absolutely natural. It's absolutely natural. If I am unsure how to react, what to do in this situation, the safest bet for me is to look at another human because, well, you know what? They have the same needs, the same survival need, the same surviving factors. Might as well look to another human to know how to react. And the second one is very interesting because you brought it up as well. Trustworthy person, Sarita. Well, when we're looking at others for support in how to react, what to do, so dealing with this uncertainty, naturally, we trust what experts say or do more than others. This is only human. There's, again, a lot of social studies, very interesting social studies done on this aspect of human communication. The fact that they can put, for example, a person in uniform in the street and getting people to pay for parking without checking whatsoever, just the person has a uniform, we trust them. Think of, and that's why, by the way, you all need to give feedback to Mohammed and Ron. Why? To get your certificate. But why do you need a certificate? Why do you need a certificate? For your authority. Teachers do exactly as doctors do. You know, in the doctor, at your doctors, you know that wall with plenty of certificates? Do you have any idea what those certificates are? Have you ever checked which university, what title they got? Maybe if they were top of the class or bottom of the class for that particular certificate or diploma they have? No. We humans have a natural tendency to trust authority, expertise, and the doctors have these walls. It's become a tradition for doctors. They don't especially question it, or they might not all realize why they're doing it, but it's exactly that. It's for the authority. And that is why you need a nice certificate from Mohammed and Ron. And to do that, reciprocity, they asked you for feedback. Putting those certificates on your social media, on your Instagram, things like that. That's how we teachers build on authority as well, right? So dealing with uncertainty, social proof, and authority. Oh, thank you, Fiona. I do my best. I try to. But yeah, that's the it's just this human factor, this human language. I find it fascinating. And we are going to see very shortly what we can do with it in the classroom, in lessons, because really what I love about this is you can apply it to English lessons, you can apply it to communication skills, you can apply it to mentoring, less with coaching, because coaching is really about opening up the other person. And if you'd bring up the science of influence or persuasion in a coaching session, you'd be transforming it back into a mentoring session. But anyways, we're gonna have a look at that after. Sorry. Third and last category of these factors, motivating to act. And that is, it's very important. You'll notice that this politicians, salespeople, they really studied this to motivate us to act, to manipulate us, to buy something, to vote for them, things like that. But hey, we need it as well. We need it to motivate our students to do the homework, to take it seriously, things like that. Even in our personal lives, in your couple, with your children, with your parents, you'll see that motivating to act is a huge, huge, very important social interaction. Oh, all right. Perfect. So motivating to act, the first one, and that one is used everywhere in sales, consistency. This is a very, very, very modern aspect to sales, to how businesses behave differently with their clients nowadays, today. Consistency, or maybe you've heard of the small yes. Has anybody ever heard of the small yes or the consistency factor? And how is it used? What does it do in social interactions? How does it motivate us to act? Anybody? The small yes? Yeah. We begin to engage. Hesitation. Well, it's very nice, Asma. Very nice. It's to avoid that hesitation, to break that hesitation. I see what you mean. Okay, yes, it's true that this first step works like this. It can lead to big results. But the idea of the small step or the small action is actually to lead to the next big one. Let me give you a very interesting example from a social study. In different neighborhoods, they were trying to put campaigns in place to get people to drive safely, not to drive so fast. And I mean, it's a noble cause. Who wouldn't want? Most people are parents in neighborhoods, want their kids to be in safety and not to worry about them crossing the street, things like that. They want to be They want to be sure that drivers are careful in their area. One group went for an immediate big yes. The idea of the big yes is what? They were asking people in the neighborhood to put up huge signs on their windows or in their gardens and things like that, but really big billboard kind of things, pushing people to drive safely, to slow down, to things like that. It was huge. It was a very, very big yes. And despite the fact that most were obviously parents and obviously wanted people to drive safely, it was too big a commitment. Very few people said yes. Now, not changing that that end goal of getting these huge billboards in a lot of different places in this neighborhood, in other neighborhoods, they tried a different tactic. Instead of going directly in with the big guns, please put these huge signs, they first went door to door in the neighborhood and first asked everybody to put in a tiny little sticker I support the Drive Safely campaign, something like that in their window. So here they were going for a small yes. And then a week or two later, I don't remember exactly the timeline. I don't think it's shouldn't be too late. But then in a second step, they came up to these families, neighbors, and asked to put on the big sign. That was much more successful in the second run. Why? Because consistency means that we humans want to be true to our words. We want to be true to our actions. So if you get someone to do this small yes, they're much more likely to commit to the big yes later on. We want to commit. We want to be consistent with our actions, with our words. And that is why it's very important as well. Important factor should be public. That is why you want to try to get students, learners, parents to make small commitments first before getting them to make big commitments. You'll be much more successful in your dealing with parents and your students in that way. Oh, and Ron, excellent point. Students do not like teachers who are inconsistent. That's an excellent point, Ron, actually. You're absolutely right that I'm focusing on, yes, using these, but it's important to point out that failing on these things is a huge, it sets off a huge alert in other humans. You're absolutely right, Ron. If you are inconsistent once or twice, you are really losing trust. If you lie about your authority in the previous ones, if you don't reciprocate a favor, for example, all these things, if you fail to act on these elements of the human language, other humans register that, and you lose in credibility, you lose in trust. Absolutely, Sarita, exactly. Last factor, I promise, because time is a-flowing, and the next speaker is in 7 minutes, right, Mohammed? The last one, and I'm sure that you'll notice in so many places, scarcity. Survival instinct. It comes from really the dawn of times. We are looking, we crave what there's little of. It is normal. I see in the chat just a comment, Ron. Is everything okay? But the next speaker is at 45, right? Mohammed?
Yeah, everything's okay.
Okay. So yes, scarcity. We crave what there's little of, and so many companies bank on that. The limited offers, the things like that. So many politicians do as well, to manipulate us, to make us feel angry, to drive us against each other in small groups of unity. Be very careful of the scarcity factor. We crave what there is little of. Ooh, nice. Scarcity can be a powerful motivator because it creates a sense of urgency or desire for something that is limited or hard to obtain. People often value things more when they're scarce, leading them to act quickly or work harder to attain them. Perfect definition. Perfect. Very, very good. That's absolutely the case. And we are easily manipulable. Look at all 7 of these factors. They're ingrained in us. And as I said before, I'm sure you'll all agree, you can go anywhere around the world, not speak the same language at all, not even know 2 words in common. Banking on these principles and these factors, and speaking with gestures, with actions, things like that, you will be able to communicate with another human being thanks to these 7 factors. It is huge. It is huge because once you understand that, and once you're able to introduce that in your lessons, in your mentoring, your coaching, anything that you do, you'll see that you're going beyond this communication by language. You're dealing with the human language. It's brilliant. sometimes less is more. Nice. I'll keep it short then. Brilliant. Well, basically all that to illustrate. I thought so. Very quickly, moving on, 5 minutes. You can use this in different ways. I'm going to show you what I do with my groups of entrepreneurs, startup teams, and things like that, because I really like, well, what I love about this aspect of business is that, generally speaking, these are people that are very driven, are not afraid of anything, that they want to go, to move on, to learn new things, to practice, to do, to continue, to try again, to be challenged. Let's move on. It's a lot of fun. And it's very interesting to talk about using these 7 factors ethically, in an ethical way, because these people are people who want to build their businesses. They want to be proud. They want to be, they want to be proud of what they do, the businesses they put together. And let's use these ethically. It's very interesting. So entrepreneurs, what I will start with, for example, is choosing products or services. So have fun. You can always do sessions where you're reflecting on the learner's real business, real product, real service. I like to keep that for, I like to do practice runs first with completely ludicrous ideas. Why? Just to get the ball rolling, just to get that brainstorming out the way, and playfully play with these 7 factors, just in a no pressure area where the learners are not obsessed about their business needs and business goals. So I'll give them some. Mohammed, I'll send the presentation so everybody can use it. I mean, these are just funny ideas of product services that I introduced to the students. You can find loads of them online very easily. Just type silly gadget on Google. You'll have plenty of ideas. And what I highly recommend is basically with each product, what they're going to try to do is try to convince, for example, an investor to bank on it. You can do the same thing, but with clients or with HR. They're trying to hire people, for example. I find it very interesting. This is one with potential investors. So the idea, the product is the same, but sell it to different kind of people. And because they're different kind of people, you need to think about the human language. How are you going to convince them? So you have, for example, the heir to a family fortune who aspires to be a public figure and improve the family image. A self-made person who's devoting their retirement years to being a business angel. A well-established, sorry, I can't see everything. A well-established partner at a multinational investment fund. A gamer who struck gold designing the #1 trendy app. An investment banker who lost big at the last financial crisis and looking for that golden opportunity. A lottery winner with no experience whatsoever in investing. You see, all these different investors, my students are going to, so they're each going to get a product. They have the product, but they get out of the logic of thinking about the product. It's also that traditional, like, you sell me a pen, don't sell the pen. Talk to the person. You're trying to connect with another human being. Same idea here. I've got a startup, and I have all these different kind of investors that I can convince to invest in my business. How am I going to deal with each one individually? I need to connect with them. I need to think about who they are and how we're going to communicate. I'm so sorry. It's already 44. There's very little time for questions and interaction. Mohammed, what do you think?
Well, I think, people can send their questions and then I can send them to you.